representing the New York law enforcement community as well, for 5 minutes of testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon. Thank you both for your service. On July 13th, we witnessed the Secret Service fail to secure a Pennsylvania field and keep the former president of the United States of America and the Americans that were gathered there safe. While President Trump thankfully survived this horrific attack, Corey Compatore, a volunteer fire chief, a father, and a husband died while shielding his family from the assassin's bullets. Two others, David Dutch and James Copenhaver, were both struck by bullets and are still recovering. The Secret Service failed. Quite frankly, they failed miserably. And Colonel Paris, Mr. Yos, Mr. Ezel, myself, we could probably combine our law enforcement experience and have no question that there was failures that day. We could probably ask someone who just graduated from a police academy or a veteran with 40 years on the job, and they would agree. So my first question is to Colonel Paris. I know that you mentioned over the last year you've had close to 20 interactions with the Secret Service and visits. During his presidency, Pennsylvania has been the second most visited state by President Biden. If you could go over again, what is your coordination with the Secret Service? What does it normally look like ahead of a visit from the President of the United States?
So I would say the basic timeline is the same. We are notified at some point that there's going to be a visit of a protectee or the president and everybody in between. The venue is ultimately secured, the logistics, and then there's planning at the request of the Secret Service, and our default position is to attempt to partner and give them all the support that we can.
Okay. Now, I know that Mr. Menendez had similar questions, but I just want to reiterate because I think it's critically important. Of the dozens of times that you've dealt with visits from the President of the United States, and I'm sure you've thought about this dozens and dozens of times at this point, and read through emails and thought about different incidents, compared to the incident on July 13th, was there anything different from the way that this was handled?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
Okay. So at approximately 5:51 p.m., Pennsylvania State Police notified the Secret Service of a subject with a rangefinder. That was 20 minutes before the gunman shot President Trump and two others. This is for either one of you. What should have happened next?
So ideally, I would say that Mr. Crooks could have been encountered and intercepted. That would have been the ideal.
Mr. Yos?
Well, I have no direct knowledge. I want to make that clear. But I think also we need to assess the threat and determine whether there's a need to withhold the asset from the stage.
So I think we all know what should have happened, right? 20 minutes passed. There was someone who eventually took a shot at a former president of the United States and killed two innocent Americans. So we know what did happen. We know what should have happened. What do you say to those that are saying that local law enforcement failed to provide adequate security at this rally?
As I stated earlier, based on everything I know up until day 10, I only am going to comment on the Pennsylvania State Police, and it's my belief as I sit here, based on all the information that I have, that we met or exceeded our expectations for that event. Am I saying that the event was a success? Obviously, it was not, and our hearts go out to those affected.
Mr. Yos?
I will echo the fact that that local law enforcement plays a huge role and must. I don't think the federal agencies have the ability to with bandwidth to be able to have this event without coordinated effort with local law enforcement. To my knowledge, local law enforcement did what their responsibilities and directions were.
And Mr. Yos, we've corresponded about this prior, but I just want to, in the last 20 seconds I have, the United States Secret Service established and managed the primary command post. Would you agree, Colonel, that in the United States of America, we have a serious issue when it comes to law enforcement and communicating through multiple jurisdictions and agencies at a singular event?
I would say the short answer is it depends, but communications are always a critical piece to any successful operation.
So I agree it does depend, but I do have a concern when some people's lives are on the lines, when we are supposed to be protecting an asset, regardless of who it is, but especially someone who was it was the President of the United States. The fact that law enforcement agencies are communicating at such a critical time via text message is a problem. And it's one that I think this committee and other committees need to take a real hard look at. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr. Strong for 5 minutes questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here today. I think we all agree that none of us ever wanted to be